Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has seriously, basically replaced Liz Cheney among the leadership among House Republicans. She joins us now. She also represents the 21st District in New York. Congresswoman Stefanik, welcome back. What is your take for that challenge from Liz Cheney?
Well, it's a disgrace, and it's shamelessly partisan. She is acting no more than Nancy Pelosi's puppet. I certainly understand that her Wyoming constituents disagree with her, which is why they're going to fire her in her primary later on this year. You know what's really shameless, though, Brian? When I was home in my district during district work period, there was not a single question on January 6th. What people were talking about was the inflation crisis, which we just got news today continues to soar. The gas prices that are crushing families' budgets, hurting rural communities and all communities across America, the crime that's skyrocketing. Democrats aren't hosting primetime hearings or any hearings on any of those issues that actually impact the American people. Instead, they're having a Pelosi partisan witch hunt to punish Donald Trump, their political opponents, and voters across America.
On January 6th, they feel as though the President of the United States, they're trying to prove the President of the United States was on it, called 1-800 Keepers, called the Proud Boys and said, go in. Do you think they're leading towards that charge? And when will you, or can you tell our audience, many of which you represent in WABC and WRCN, and we're all throughout upstate New York, can you tell our audience where you think this is heading from what you saw?
I think it's heading, I think, number one, Democrats and their allies are trying to change the narrative to distract from all of the crises their policies have created. Number two is I think they are continuing their obsession against President Trump and voters across the country because they can't beat him at the ballot box as he gears up likely to run in 2024, particularly against such a weak president like Joe Biden, who continues to plummet in his approval ratings. You're already seeing that are the indicators in the opening hearing, some of the statements that were made. But it reminded me of the impeachment, hoax, part one. And part two, where Democrats they can't understand why President Trump has so much support across America. It's because he's talking about the issues and he's fighting the establishment and fighting back to the media, which the American people have been looking for. And certainly the policies were much more effective for the American people under President Trump than certainly we're seeing under Joe Biden.
So the President of the United States weighed in and ripped Bill Barr for saying he didn't see any problem with the election. And even Ivanka, he says Ivanka has checked out. And with Mike Pence, they're not on speaking terms. What side do you land on? Do you understand where Barr is coming from? Do you understand where Pence is coming from? Or are you more in the camp of the president's 100% right here?
My position is there was unconstitutional overreach, and that's a very serious issue. And as a member of Congress, that was why I objected to certain electors of certain states based upon the unconstitutional overreach. You can't just unilaterally rewrite election laws and not go through the constitutional process according to the states. Numerous states did not follow that process. That's why I objected. I stand by my House speech floor. But I also, as have all Republicans, condemned the violence on January 6th. That should have never happened. It should never happen again. And Republicans, when we were booted from the committee, Leader McCarthy's appointees, our members have been pursuing what are the necessary steps that we need to take to provide Capitol Police with the training, the equipment they need, with the intelligence warnings, and asking those very particular questions. So I believe election integrity, what I hear from voters, that's a really important issue, and I'm glad that certain states are taking action to address election integrity. Certainly in my home state of New York, we have a lot of work to do. We had a member of Congress that wasn't seated for 3 months because they kept finding absentee ballots in desk drawers as they went through the counting process. So whether you're Republican or Democrat, election integrity is the most important basis of a constitutional republic. And I believe that we need to work to rebuild that. I agree with President Trump.
George Gascon, who's about to lose his job if there's any justice in the world, commented on the fact that there's a new district attorney in San Francisco who has the same liberal views. This is what he says is the problem with the perception that people have of him. Cut 22.
I think that people feel their safety compromised. The problem that we have today is the results of many of the bad policies that over-criminalize communities without really looking for a path in order to create the reduction of crime, the prevention of crime, and putting communities in a better place.
So people feel compromised because we over-criminalized communities, and that's why people are upset right now by the rising crime. Can you wrap your head around that?
No, people are upset because of the rise in crime, because we're decriminalizing communities and we are not prosecuting criminals. I mean, look at the state of New York. New York is falling apart. Crime is skyrocketing, and yet we have a DA who refuses to prosecute these cases. There is no longer equal justice under the law because you have far left DAs who are cherry picking and choosing when and when not to prosecute, and it's causing havoc on our streets. And look at the outcome of the San Francisco recall of Chesa Boudin, that the fact that voters, and there's only single-digit registered Republicans, and yet Democrats, Republicans, and independents are absolutely frustrated with this crime surge we've seen. We need to prioritize the victims, not the criminals. We need to prioritize families' safety and security, again, not the criminals, and that's just not the direction where the defund the police Democrats have taken us. They've taken us in the wrong direction. Congresswoman
Stefanik, my guest. Congresswoman, I interviewed Rob Astorino, a guy you're familiar with, former Westchester executive, running for governor on the first to get the nomination. He's been able to obtain video of these illegal immigrant flights landing in Westchester and in upstate on Stewart Airport, right away where you call home. Now, there's 1.7 million people encounters last year at the border. We already have 1.2 this year. Now, every community is talking about these flights coming in. You got in New York, we have them on video. These look like mostly young men. They got fresh clothes. They have supplies. Where are they going?
Well, the Republicans intend to subpoena that information from the Department of Homeland Security, and I've made those requests. We're in the minority right now. It's one of the ways that when we win the majority, we're going to hold this administration accountable. The Homeland Security Department has refused to answer those questions. How many? Where are they going? Are we notifying local law enforcement? Why is this even happening? I mean, the list goes on. I credit my friend Rob Astorino for putting in that Freedom of Information request. Otherwise, the American people wouldn't have known that. These flights were during the dark of night. And we need to absolutely secure the border. We need to return to President Trump's very effective border security policies. And this goes back to the rule of law, Brian. Clearly, this administration is not abiding by the rule of law, and they're trying to hide it from the American people. Look no further than these illegal flights. But I'm deeply concerned. It's why every district across the country is a border district. It's not just, those geographically contiguous to the southern border. It's everywhere in America.
So, Congresswoman, we also know this. The president has teased a big immigration announcement. To the embarrassment of this country, Honduras, Mexico, and El Salvador and Guatemala have blown us off and not showing up to the Americas Conference in Los Angeles, a conference we started. So they don't like a lot of the center-right governing, especially when it comes to, I believe, Guatemala. We know about the outlaw nations of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. But having said that, the president says even without the triangle countries represented, he's got a major announcement, and they tease this. He's going to put forward labor pathways to the United States for both migrants transiting their countries for their source countries. He's essentially looking to give all of them work visas to come here. They said this is going to have to pass Congress. Could you see yourself supporting that?
No, I would not support that, and that is going to pour further fuel on the already raging border crisis fire. That's a magnet for more illegals and migrants to try to cross our southern border. That is absolutely the wrong approach. The correct approach would be, again, to secure the border, to return to the very effective President Trump-era policies, remain in Mexico, et cetera, keep Title 42, which we pressured this administration to at least delay that decision. So, no, I would absolutely vote no on that, and we will stand up against that. And I'm hard-pressed that Nancy Pelosi is going to be able to find the votes because Democrats know that they're losing on this issue. And in addition to the 30-plus Democrat retirements who are heading for the hills, there's a number of members that are likely to get beat this November at the ballot box because of their failure on border, among other issues.
You're a parent to a young child. Can you get baby formula?
It's a great question, Brian. So in my district in upstate New York, they are rationing baby formula. My son is 9 months old, and I started seeing earlier this year the shelves becoming more and more sparse. I wrote a letter to the FDA in February. We got no response from the Biden administration until May. So I had rang the alarm bells because I was seeing this firsthand and was concerned about the Abbott closure. They did nothing. They sat on their hands. They mismanaged this. But no, there's no end in sight, unfortunately, to this shortage, this crisis that was created, I believe, because of FDA's malfeasance, and now they're trying to cover it up. So they rationed it. I was going in, I was trying to buy formula for about 4 days because we were traveling all over the district. And, we travel as a family over Memorial Day weekend, going to Memorial Day ceremonies, and they rationed it at the store, which is unbelievable in a rural community like in upstate New York.
Unbelievable. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much power you may have, or how little. It doesn't matter how old your kid. It doesn't matter how experienced you are as a parent. Everywhere you go, you have to now go to the front desk or the counter and ask for the baby formula because it's not on the shelves. In America, this is unbelievable. And you did call it in February, but the president said he wasn't a mind reader when asked about it in April. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik.
And now we know they knew at the end of last year, too, Brian. There's new reporting that they knew. This administration knew at the end of last year.
And they did not relay it because of the whistleblower put it out in December, correct?
Correct.
In October, they had the letter in December, and they didn't take action. They weren't able to get their head around the fact that only 4 companies provide all the baby formula for this nation, and that when the Abbott lab went down, 40% of all inventory went down. Congresswoman Stefanik, thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.